Sign the meeting.
Distraction.
Well, we're gonna have to declare this because it's so fancy.
I got two. Yeah, it's
Oh.
over.
I didn't see one under your paperwork, so I didn't think we missed it.
I'm so excited.
I'll ask our auditor to declare a value.
Yes, you do.
I'm gonna hold mine in backup because I have my own. I could give it back.
How was dinner?
Good. Leftovers. Did you get some?
I stepped out for a minute and had some big salmon that I did yesterday. Turned out really good.
That's, yeah.
Good evening and welcome everyone to the February 5th, 2020 City Council meeting. The meeting is now in session. I'm going to start out with a declaration of any conflict of interest at this time.
No?
I just have one thing I have to recuse myself from tonight, which is the OLCC licensing, and my business is in there, so I'm going to recuse myself from that part. Just FYI. Next up, we have the approval of minutes from our regular meeting dated January 8th, 2020. Is there a motion to approve or to make any changes?
I'm going to approve.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so moved. Planning Commission report. We do not have a Planning Commission report because there was not a Planning Commission meeting.
So, does that mean they're on strike, or are we no longer having a planning commission? This is 3 months straight.
I think it's 2 months.
2 months. And correct, they're not on strike, no. Lack of things on the agenda and vacations from Carol and that just all came together, but we are having a meeting next month for sure.
Really?
Yeah,
In March.
correct. And they're just kind of in between working on some projects. So they've got their goals list, they've updated it. The next thing they're going to start biting into is going to be the Parks Master Plan.
So the question is, is there a February meeting then? Is that the next meeting? Or-
Correct.
Don't they have to
I'm
have
sorry.
time for you?
February, we're meeting this month.
Okay.
Okay, so
I'm working on it.
Next week.
Otherwise, that would be 3, that's why I was.
Right. And as I recall from the Planning Commission days, we would periodically miss December, January. Seemed like two of the months that, just because of stuff going on, that there were a lot of folks that were unable to attend, and that those were common to miss those meetings. So nothing too out of the ordinary, I would say. Although look forward to having it back. Next up, we have the mayor's report, and I just wanted to do a little review and just touch on a few things. State of your heart, perhaps you could call it. But the first thing that I wanted to touch on was, and wanted to give a big thank you, but as you know, Gearhart's in desperate need of a new fire station. The original building was built in 1958. It's built on cinder blocks. The walls are cracking. The building needs to hopefully be rebuilt or build a new fire station. And in review, we had a citizen committee. I wanted to thank them for all the hard work that they've done over the last 3 or 4 years. And almost 1 year ago today, it was just a little over a year ago, we had a wonderful city town hall. And it was probably one of the most well-attended town halls that I've ever been a part of. And we really tried to bring the community together to get involved with the process of not only choosing a location for the fire station, but also getting feedback from them and making sure that they were part of the process, knowing that we haven't built another fire station since 1958, so we know building any kind of critical infrastructure especially today, is a difficult process. And we need as many people on board as possible to make that process work. And so a year ago, we set out to get as much feedback as possible. I'm so happy to report that we got almost 1,000 pages of data feedback, and that's on top of all of the citizens that have come to all of us directly, come to the city directly, all the councilors and myself, with tons of great ideas, critiques, ideas, where they stand, and just the amount of time and the amount of people that have been involved in the process. I think it was a really, really good thing. So I just wanted to review some of the information that we came across. Like I said, we have almost 1,000 pages of data, and on top of a lot of other feedback. Through our survey system, as far as registered voters of your heart, 82.5% supported a new station, 79.4% supported a bond, and as we all know, the majority of voters support the highest location, which is called the High Point Station. Many of the folks support it because one of the reasons is that it would survive about 95% of all major tsunami threats. So the city's done a lot to get in the mode of preparing ourselves for the most common disastrous event, which would be a medium or large size earthquake and tsunami. And so we've recently passed some ordinances and made tweaks to our comp plan to help prepare for that, and worked with the DLCD in doing that as well, and updating our tsunami maps. We were one of the first cities on the Oregon coast to do that, which I think really shows our commitment to emergency preparedness, but also shows that this is the feedback that we got from a lot of you that helped this process along. So where are we at now? Well, we're finishing up our due diligence process, and part of that process was obviously looking at geotech on the properties, still coming across detailed final costs so that we can make sure that this station would be a value to our citizens and an asset to the community. Obviously, there's land negotiations that are involved in it as well. And as we're finishing up these points of due diligence, my hope is that we are able to come to a decision sometime soon, and perhaps put a new fire station on a bond sometime this year. That's my hope. And I just wanted to thank everyone involved. Thank you to the city too. I know Chad's got a more detailed update on where we're at with some of the due diligence processes, so I won't take away from what he's got. But I just want to say that there's a lot of people, including the citizen committee, including a lot of our citizens residents, and of course our councilors and city staff, that have put a lot of hard work into this. So I'm really looking forward to, hopefully getting to a point where we can make a decision and hopefully do something this year. So I want to thank everybody for that. Just a few other things too. We have our budget season coming up, so we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. But just a couple of little points, because people ask, we obviously have a fiduciary responsibility for our budget and spending taxpayer money wisely. And but a lot of people don't know where we're at. How is the city financially? And so every once in a while, I like to touch on a few things. First of all, I just big hats off to our budget officer Chad and also our budget committee. Last budget cycle we underspent our budget by $225,000. I mean, how many government agencies and communities can say that they run surplus every year and build their cash carry forward so that our reserve funds can grow, and especially in case of emergency or something unexpected. So we have nearly $2 million worth of reserve funds. So that means if there was a natural disaster, something where we couldn't get revenue in, the city would would most likely be able to survive on reserve funds for 1 to 2 years. And there's not a lot of other communities, and you have to talk to the county, but the city of Bearheart's in a pretty good position that way. And it's not because of luck. It's because of a lot of the due diligence from our counselors who look at that budget line by line, our committee members who do a great job of doing the same and of asking the right questions, and then our budget officer, Chad, as well. We don't spend a lot of money, and when we do, when we need to spend money, we do it wisely. So I think that's really important to understand. And then moving forward, later on tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about that process as well, and I think Chad's got a little bit to report on that as well. So I just want to give you a couple small updates. One other quick update, Chad and myself got to meet with Sheila Rowley, the superintendent of Seaside School District, last week. Yep, and we had a great meeting. It was just kind of a feel-out meeting. We wanted to see what the progress was on, of course, the new school, but also wanted to find out a little bit more information about the property at Bearheart Elementary School. Just kind of finding out what their thoughts on it were. The school district, one of the things they said is that they really wish that they could give all these properties away to the communities. They would really love to do that, but obviously they can't. They're not in that position to, so they have to sell those properties to offset some of the costs. If they could give it away, it'd be great. It'd be a win-win for everybody. But they also reiterated there's no sale imminent. We mentioned to Sheila that there are folks in the community that would like to see that remain possibly open space or a park or some other uses for it as well. And we let her know that as we go forward with our parks master plan process, that we'll definitely look at those things, but no guarantee of where that's going to go yet. And as I said, there's no sale imminent, I think, of any of the properties right now, including the grade school. So don't really have any update other than that as far as a timeline or if that property would sell in the next few years or not. So.
Did you broach any question about us getting like a first shot at it?
We did actually talk about a few things like that, but they're really not prepared to do anything like that right now. It was the vibe that I got. But we let them know that there are people that might be interested in that, folks that are definitely interested in possibly even maintaining the property so that it can still be used while it's for sale as well. So we just kind of brainstormed, and nothing to report on that, and they're definitely not prepared to give any promises or anything on the property right now.
So that property belonged to the city. Was it deeded then to the school district when we joined School District 10? Because the county gave us that property, and exit back out to the city, but I've never seen any records how it got transferred from the city to the school district.
Yeah, I don't know much about the history of the property. I mean, I know that the school district knows it now, but I'd be interested to see what the history of the property is.
Because that's what happened at Broadway School. It belonged to the city of Seaside, and then it was given to Broadway with the contingency that the school district didn't need it anymore, would go back to the city. So I wonder how that's going to work out.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So we could get a title report on it and see if there's a reversionary interest that would bring it back to us. Part of what we're trying to do is educate them, unless you've been through a lot of land use hearings or comp plan amendments or zoning changes. It's really difficult for someone that's not familiar with that process to understand what it is. And there's kind of a fine line in us making sure that they understand that, they can't expect the city to just snap its fingers and make something happen. And I think it's very early in this process for them. And I think as they learn more about just zoning and land use laws in Oregon, then it'll help inform some of their positions. And and they'll develop a better understanding of what they can do with the property and what they can't.
Thank you.
Rita, if you'd like to, you can make an appointment. I know Planning was also interested in some of this, and we can work towards getting that information.
Thank you.
I'd be happy to work with you on that.
And yeah, we did have a good discussion about the zoning a little bit as well, and just that if anyone has any questions, to make sure that they come to the city with the zoning. It is not zoned residential. It's got very specific zoning on it right now.
Incredibly restrictive zoning.
Right.
Yeah.
So folks that might be interested in it down the road or even the city need to understand the zoning, of course. But other than that, yeah, it was a really good informative meeting. We'll continue to have conversations as well and get updates on the new school as well. And Sheila also offered to come to some city council meetings to kind of keep us posted on that as well. So, you know, the public can be aware of anything that's going on. And possibly even during that Parks and Master Plan process. So we hope to get started on that pretty soon. So that's all I've got right now for the state of Earhart. With that, we'll go on to council reports, and we'll start with Councilor Fackrell.
I don't have anything.
Councilor Jesse.
I have nothing.
Councilor Smith.
Nothing.
All right. Councilor Cochran.
I have three
Oh,
items. I'll scratch off the school property one off. So I have worked on the manager's job description, or administrator, excuse me. Just to simplify it a little bit from what we've done in the past, which we did miss last year, so we want to make sure that we do an evaluation this year. What I've done is take the job description and put it into an evaluation form. And it simplifies the document a little bit. And Chad has that, and so we just want to look at what the next step would be, maybe sharing it with everybody to see if it's inclusive enough, or is that good? I mean, can we just consensus that and send that out?
no, that's great.
Okay.
Definitely work with that.
And then the personnel policy manual, Chad and I have worked on that, kind of the next round on that. What I discovered is we have not melded the old book. There are some elements in that from the model language from the LOC, LOC. So we have probably one more meeting to meld all that together, and then we've got a document to give you. And the old document does say that we are the approval body, and it's not an ordinance, but an amendment.
It's,
Yeah.
we would just be a resolution
But-
because it's administrative versus legislative.
Right, but we would have a hearing on that as well, though.
And I'm sorry, I agreed with you, but it was CIS, our insurance company.
Oh, it's here. And then the CERT group continues to meet, and I would just give a shout out to all of the volunteers, Dan included. We've been meeting for about 10 years now, or maybe 11. And so we are very close to implementing the cash barrel program with help from the city, and the fire department themselves will help with that. It's the 30-gallon barrels that are out here in the lobby, and I encourage people to pick up a brochure and learn about it. That would be potentially for putting your own personal barrel up by the water tower in a locked and secure connex. We also have that team. Most of us are ham radio operators and are participating in one or another call-ins, weekly call-ins. And that's going pretty well. We also have a ham station here that we're doing some reprogramming on, and then we're finalizing the communication procedures that in a big disaster would meld, think of CERT people in the communities or in the neighborhoods with the fire department, which again would flow up to the emergency operations center, theoretically, somewhere, if it was a tsunami, on high ground. So that is just about done, and that's all I have.
Excellent. And thank you for all your hard work with the personal handbook. I mean, that's really good stuff. That's going to help out a lot. something that needed to get updated. Quick question on that too. Once you guys have some drafts, is that something that goes before the council, or is that just an internal document?
Yeah, that's what we were saying,
Drafts of
the personnel policy.
And the evaluation as well?
yeah,
Both. I think
Because that would replace our old evaluation process.
yeah. And the evaluation through consensus, and then the personnel policy through,
They would both be, yeah, you're in consensus, and then it would be a resolution
so not
to adopt so the reason we're having a public hearing is because the current one specifies we have to hold a public hearing. Normally, when you have a public hearing, it means you're taking legislative action and you're
Got it.
adopting something via ordinance. This is purely administrative, so we're doing
Got it.
it versus referral.
And the administrator evaluation, the process won't change, just the tool that we use is, I'm just gonna say a little more simplified, and it follows directly with the job description.
And that tool, those tools could be duplicated for all the department heads as well.
Yeah. Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have our city officers reports. I think there was a police report there in our packet. City Treasurer Gail, do you have anything to report?
No.
Thank you, Gail. Next up we have our city attorney, Mr. Peter Watts.
I've had some ongoing conversations with the president of the Palisades Homeowners Association, and they provide us with some documents and other things so we can hopefully continue the steps that we're taking regarding High Point.
Excellent. Next up we have our city administrator, Chad Sweet.
thank you, Mayor and Council. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about the emergency response resiliency station at the fire station, and just kind of update you what's been happening over the last really couple of weeks. We've been pretty busy. We did receive the final report from PSI, the geotechnical firm out of Portland, and on the High Point site, so that was great. And then just to double check, we asked Stephen Landrich with Shannon Wilson Geotechnical Consultants to do a peer review of that PSI report, and that's been done, just to verify some of the information that we got. After the peer review, I met with John Forrester, who is a consulting project manager with us, and Ivar Larsens, who is a consulting architect. They haven't been hired to be the project manager, and they haven't been hired to be the architect yet, but they've been helping us get through this process. With Stephen McLandrich, who is he's a professional engineer and a geotechnical engineer, and we discussed the foundation types recommended for High Point site. So at the meeting, we determined that we found a standard type building foundation would work on top of some underground stone columns, would be the best approach for that site.
Is that similar to the water?
The water treatment facility had that same foundation type. It was a little thicker foundation because of all the pipes, but it has all of the underground stone columns. Safeway in Astoria was designed that way. The new Tractor Supply that's going in was designed that way. I believe so was, I'm not sure about Costco, but Walmart was.
Cool.
The reason for these is because locations where there's liquefaction and lateral spreading, those are the columns that keep the building intact and don't allow a lot of liquefaction. So these buildings, after a seismic event, Cascadia subduction zone event, or what have you, will remain standing, remain operational, we hope. They're widely used in the locations that we talked about. They added the construction cost, but we're working out those details and putting everything together. But it's a good idea for the investment of the property that we'd be making if the citizens did move forward with a bond, and of course make the building useful after a seismic event. So we'll know more soon. We're putting pricing together. With the foundation information, we asked that architectural cost consultant company, they're called ACC, in Tigard, to update our site and building construction costs. Now we know more, so we want to really kind of focus in on the costs that we have. And these costs are based on timing and all sorts of factors. Our location, from labor, when we're going to build, it's all factored in. So we should have a final report coming up soon, very soon, with that. And then we're going to go ahead and take a really solid look at all this information that we have. So with the preliminary design that we have, reviewed geotechnical reports, foundation recommendation, the next step is to review the entire package, put it together, and comb through all of those costs piece by piece. So later this evening, that's why I'm going to be making a request for money from the Building Reserve Fund to complete that final review, and we'll talk about that later. Once we have that review, staff will make a recommendation to the City Council during either a meeting or a special council meeting, however we do it, as to what the costs are likely going to be for the construction, for bonding, and all of that. City Council had asked the staff to negotiate a deal with Murphy family for High Point property, and we've negotiated. We're working on a signed, potentially bringing a signed purchase agreement to the council for your review. So things are looking good there. Everything is coming together at this point. Yeah, if the property deal with the cost estimates and the bond pricing are acceptable to the City Council, hopefully this year we will be able to take this to a vote. Any questions about any of that?
Just the request that's coming up, is that for an additional final review, or are all these elements that you talked about the final review and you just need to put that together in a...
No, it's going to be putting them together and then doing a final review on all of those elements to make sure. Not necessarily going over the geotech report again, but going to another architecture firm, having them look at all the numbers that we have and making sure that they're in line with what we think they're going to be. So a triple check, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I have about the fire station. Duncan's Crossing, again, we've gotten through all the processes. Oh my goodness. There was like 20 different firms and many, many things to work with, but we're ready to begin construction. So to do that, this is going to be something that we're going to look for the community to help us with. And so those with building skills or just want to get out there and help do some things, we're going to be coming out soon saying, we need some help and please volunteer. And we're pretty excited about that project. Just to let you know, the Class of Alerts alert that comes on your cell phone thing, they're going to be doing another quarterly test this month. I don't have the date specific, but just be aware that there will be a test going out on your cell phones and home phones for calls. Then again, they're going to start doing quarterly tests on that to make sure that the system is working correct. Emergency cash and barrels. We've got a lot of good work from the volunteers. We're going to start in a week or so a sign-up sheet for people that are interested. And we will be having our attorney take a look at the memorandum of understanding here soon, so that we can put these deals, make sure that we're safe and how this is going to work and what goes on with their barrels. We have a work session coming up again Tuesday, March 31st. Again, that's going to be about the C1 zone work session, council. Yesterday I met with the United States Geological Survey, and they're looking to put basically it's a shake alert advanced warning system here in Gerhard for earthquakes and things like that. So that's moved on to the next step. I'll report more here in a couple of weeks once I know, but it looks like they're wanting to do that on a property that we have up in the hills and at no cost to the city. Oregon Solutions, we've been meeting about elk. I'm the chairperson of the human side of the subcommittees, and then there's an elk side and a data side.
Who's the representative from the elk?
Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, actually. He's the chair. We haven't talked to the elk lately, but they have been around.
You should give him a seat at the table.
Kind of seen it as the emergency cash supplies for future.
Yeah.
So we had a steering committee meeting on January 15th, and then a subcommittee just last week. So we're beginning our final report phase, and then in March that should be coming through. January 28th, I went to the Classic County National Hazard Mitigation Plan work. That's moving forward. The next step on that is we've already identified what our hazards are. Now I'm going to be coming to the council soon. We're going to discuss some of the things that we can do to mitigate those hazards on a plan that could take anywhere between 1, 5, or 20 years, depending on how big the mitigation plan is. So I'll come to you with that soon. Oh, that was just a note for me. My wife was reminding me that Valentine's Day was coming up. So I thought I'd help you.
Don't forget. Great, Chad, thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or anything for Chad? All right, Chad, thanks for all your diligence on that stuff. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
So next up, we have correspondence, and we just have a few items in correspondence. Does anyone have any questions or comments on any of the correspondence? Okay. Next up, we have our first visitor section, which is a 5-minute visitor section. Anyone that does want to speak, we just ask that you give your name and address for the record. Currently, I do not have anyone signed up, but we're more than welcome to ask for volunteers from the audience of anyone that would like to comment. Jean.
Jeannie Mark, 1209 March Cottage. Chad, you can help me maybe a little bit with this, but this Saturday is Hazardous Waste Saturday at the transfer station between 9 and 2. It's once a month, and this Saturday is the once a month. So if you got junk to get rid of, it's time to do it.
Yeah, I went last month and they were super about it. I just took like a whole back of my car, and they were just waiting there for anybody to show up, and yeah, it was pretty cool. It's a great hazardous. I mean, it's getting the stuff out of our environment. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Okay, well, thanks everyone for coming. We appreciate it very much. Next up, we don't have any ordinances or resolutions. However, we do have some old business. First off, request to table the building fees discussion for now.
Yes, please. We just wanted to make sure that everything was very clear, and we're working on that now. And there's no sense in doing both fees at the same time. So to make things a little bit easier, we should be coming to you next month with these.
Okay, great. And then next up, we do have the land use fees resolution draft just for review tonight. And Chad clearly marked on each page that it is a draft of some possible updated fees that seem to be more in line with the other communities. Chad, you want to give a little talk on that?
So, stemming from last month's discussion, the land use fees and whether or not to increase them, we prepared a draft resolution for the council to review. Staff recommends that the council review the draft attached and make the suggestions as necessary. We'll bring a final draft for approval consideration to the next council meeting if so desired by council. So we've numbered the pages as well. I thought you might enjoy that. The draft resolution is first and foremost, and the fees that we proposed after our discussions were entered into this draft. So we talked about some of the concerns, raising things too high, not getting enough. We talked about the council is interested in maybe bringing the fees down a little bit. Some of the councilors were that because there's already some things that we do on a daily basis here in city government and we're available. So we kind of made a few adjustments for that. And then So we proposed those fees on there, and then the additional pages afterneath are the possible actual costs for each one of these types of situations with land use. So, for example, annexation, when we cost out what it could be, possibly up to $3,700. In annexation here, we brought that down to 35, because some of the conversations that we have just happen on a daily basis and should not be charged for. So based on our past working with a lot of these things and checking with Carol and Cheryl, we're pretty comfortable in these fees here and in these increases that we have. Any questions from the council or concerns about the amounts for these fees?
Seems appropriate to me.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll reiterate what Dan said, that it just seems like a no-brainer to get the burden off of the taxpayers, and number one, and number two, just be closer to what other communities are doing.
One of the concerns that we always have in the back of our head, and we've talked about, more affordable housing in Gearhart, we filtered that through with these fees and found that for the type of activity that has to do with these fee increases, we don't think that it's going to be a big impact on people wanting to get something more affordable. And that's why we're taking our time with our building codes fees also, to make sure we filter that through, because we don't want to be a hindrance. But we do want to make sure that we're getting what we have necessary to kind of function as a government. So we'll bring this back to you with a resolution for next meeting then. Okay.
Great, thank you, Jeff. And by the way, I forgot to say, but in our packet is our latest budget income statement. So that'll be publicly available. You can check that out as well to see how we're doing. Okay, next up, new business. And speaking of budget, we are going to adopt a budget calendar. Chad.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The Oregon Department of Revenue recommends that the city prepare a budget calendar. The calendar maps out all the steps that must occur legally to adopt the budget and allows us to plan for enough time to successfully adopt the budget by June 30th, which is the end of our fiscal. July 1 is the beginning of the next. The proposed budget calendar is attached. Like last year, staff has scheduled all notices and meetings to accommodate the council's request not to adopt the budget using the emergency clause. Budget ordinances will be read once May 6th, and then we'll need to hold a special council meeting on May 27th, 2020, for the second reading in order to accommodate the 30 days required for the ordinance to take effect. So any questions about that portion? You can make a motion to approve the budget calendar as it is, make changes to the calendar, and make a motion to approve as amended, or do nothing.
I would like to make a motion to approve the budget calendar as written.
Motion by Councilor Jesse, and do I have a second? Second by Councilor Smith. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
So moved. Okay, next up, we have, under new business, appoint a budget officer. Chad.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So to the governing body, city shall, unless otherwise provided by city charter, designate one person to serve as the budget officer. The budget officer, or the person in the department designated by the charter and acting as budget officer, shall prepare and supervise the preparation of the budget document. The budget officer shall act under the direction of the executive officer of the city, or where no executive officer exists, under the direction of the governing body, and that's ORS. Your options are to make a motion that the city administrator be designated as the budget officer, make a motion that another person be designated as the budget officer, or do nothing. Do nothing may cause a few issues.
Yeah, do nothing would, we would have a big problem.
I don't highly recommend it, but I always like to give you the option.
I'd like to make a motion that we designate the city administrator as our budget officer.
All right, do we hear, that's Councilor Jesse with the motion. Do we hear a second?
I'll second.
Councilor Fackrell with a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so moved.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have, under new business OLCC license renewals. I'm going to recuse myself from this portion because my business, the Highlands Golf Club, is on there. So I'll turn that over to Chad.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilors. So attached is the list of OLCC liquor licenses in Gearhart that are eligible for license renewal effective 3/31/2020. The ORS establishes the process for local governments to make recommendations to the OLCC. There is zero cost to renew. Council options is provide a written renewal recommendation to OLCC for any or all of the licenses on the list. Number 2 is make a written request for additional time to investigate specific renewal or renewals. The request must set forth the reason for additional time as needed, state that the local government is considering making an unfavorable recommendation, and state the specific grounds being considered towards an unfavorable recommendation. Or 3, we can take no action. It actually works here, because after 3/5/2020, the OLCC will process the renewal application as if you made a favorable recommendation. The attached sheets have the information on renewals, and page 4 on that attachment shows the renewals for our area, which is our city of Gearhart and our urban growth boundary. Any questions or concerns?
So are you aware of any police activity at any of these places for any infraction at all during the past year?
No.
Okay.
I have not been notified of any OLCC infractions. Or police activity having to do with OLCC infractions.
So no disorderly conduct or anything like that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Not having to do with these particular areas. City staff didn't have any concerns. Any other questions?
I recommend we take no action.
I second the action of no action.
That's sort of cool, actually.
So because the mayor's recused himself from the vote, someone will need to call for vote.
President of our council.
So there is a motion on the table with a second to take no action. Is there any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed? And it passed. Unanimous.
4 to nothing with 1 recusal. I will do nothing.
Thanks, Brian and Chad. Okay, next up under new business, we have grant donation request form. Okay?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So every year, the city sets aside money within its budget to donate towards local 501c3 organizations who reach out for financial assistance. Those have been awarded in funds past generally receive the attached grant donation form as an invitation to apply. The form also serves as an invoice for billing purposes on successful applications. Letters are mailed out at the end of February, leaving enough time for organizations to apply prior to the budget committee meeting. These forms will be going over by the budget committee, which consists of 5 volunteer budget folks and 5 city council folks. So our question was, is there any other information the council would like to see on the request form? Can either approve the form as you like or make some changes. Yes, ma'am.
I would like, you don't have to change the form is fine. Could you just put on there, please attach a copy of your current budget?
Sure.
That really helps sometimes.
That's a good idea. Where does the money go?
Any other recommendations?
And how do you get one of these?
Throughout the year, we have requests that come in. When those requests come in, we'll send them this information. but otherwise it's just through word of mouth, from what I understand. We could post it or post the desire to receive more applications on the blog. That might be helpful also.
We did mail them last year also.
That's correct. We mailed them to all the people that have applied and received previously.
Yeah, I mean, just having it on the blog once in case there's another organization out there that maybe hasn't asked.
I just need to clarify something I just said. Applied and received or didn't receive. They'll receive it. That's the way that we'll do it moving forward. Okay, so attach a budget, post on the blog. Anything else? Okay. So as consensus, I have approval to use that form?
Okay,
Thank you.
okay, next up, under new business, we have a request for funds from the building reserves. Chad?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So staff is requesting up to $25,000 from the Building Reserve Fund. This money will be used to complete cost estimates for the High Point Station, again, kind of our triple check. These estimates will be presented to the council on an upcoming special session or city council meeting. Your options are to approve the request, deny the request, or make an adjustment, or do nothing. Staff recommends funding the project up to $25,000, and I have a recommended motion down there for you. Currently, the city has $141,000 in the building reserve fund, and we'll be receiving more funds after this fiscal year.
Okay, do we hear a motion to approve the request?
I make a motion that we approve the requested amount of $25,000.
Okay, motion on the floor by Councilor Messi. Do we hear a second? I would like to second the motion. Any discussion?
Just one clarification, I think, for me. I just want to understand, this is just to purchase, if you will, that final review.
Correct. And then what that,
And everybody else is already paid.
correct.
For all these other,
We have all the information. This is taking all that information, putting it together, confirming that, and then receiving a signature from an organization, likely OTAC at this point, that they are certifying that this is accurate.
using the information from PSI and Shannon Wilson and ACC
And
and
ours.
ours and John Forster.
And their own,
And the
their own
city.
designers as well, yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And what that does, that signature gives us a couple of things. It gives us, it's not a guarantee. It's a signature that we've been reviewed and then we agree that this is close. This signature will also allow us, city staff is currently working on potentially going with the state of Oregon, Business Oregon, for a different type of bond that is much more advantageous to us as far as costs go. We've done a pre-application for that bond, and it has to do with lottery funds, and it has to do with reduced fees, quite a large amount of reduced fees, and a very low percentage rate. We did the pre-application, we were awarded that pre-application. Now we are currently working through the longer application, which we have 40 days or so, maybe a little bit less to apply for. And one of their requirements is that our estimations have been gone through the process that I'm talking to you about, and that we have a signature from somebody who can say that this is something that's accurate.
You know, just in the discussion part, I just think that the process that that you went through and that everyone's gone through has been so prudent, because if you look at some of the other communities that I followed, them trying to build infrastructure and other buildings, and it seems like a lot of communities spend hundreds of thousands of dollars up front before they do the due diligence on some of these things, and it just seemed like the order that we're going in of, okay, let's make sure that this works first before we go to this step, and then the final step of spending a little bit to make sure that everything's coming together correctly. I just think it's a great way to do it versus spending hundreds of thousands of dollars up front without feedback, without knowing if this, what's going to happen. And so it just hats off to that process. So I'm definitely in favor of it, for sure.
Thank you. We had a lot of questions, and so we couldn't get from part A until part B until we knew that part A was good.
Right.
So it just worked out, but thank you.
Yeah. Okay, any other discussion at all?
I just have one other comment. In my discussions, and this has been quite some time ago, with the USDA for their rural critical infrastructure, my notes from that conversation on the phone with that person really echoes having all of these things in place before you're going to look at their grant program or their loan program, which I understand we may not do, but it seems like it's right in line with what they recommended before we were to maybe go that direction. So, yeah, it's good.
Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor from Councilor Jesse, second from Mayor Brown. And all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so moved. Okay, and so next up we have council concerns. We did not request that at the beginning of the meeting. So next up we have council concerns, and we'll start with Councilor Fackrell.
I don't have any concerns.
Okay, next up we have Councilor Jesse.
I'm good.
Councilor Smith.
I have none.
Councilor Cochran.
And
Mayor Brown. I don't have any. So next up, do we hear a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make a motion, we adjourn.
I'll second that.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming, folks.
there you go.
Are you going to provide like a police report and offer report?
Try the date once.
That sounds fine. I don't know if we have that. That's for your info. Yeah.
I used to get yet again, and now I don't get it.